Gerby. Chicken wings. Chicken tenders. 9/11. Building 7. Okay. I'm sipping brandy. Yo, girl look outstanding. You thought that she was loyal. We gon' pass her Peyton Manning. You can call me Elton, cause my John is still standing. Wait, Gerby. Moving through the tunnels, dodging blood puddles while New Rome crumbles. I'm eating chicken crumbles. That's fine, whatever. There's no such thing as chicken crumbles, but this white boy really be spitting. He can't stop spitting. The unique social ills, the plight that infects Zoomers. People blame many things. The internet, looks. There's some truth to it. But I'm starting to realize some things that I wanted to hop on here and relay to you, because I feel like I'm really about to drop some spice. Think of a normal family, sort of the ideal of it. 2 parents, multiple siblings, sort of like a healthy family dynamic. How many people do you know, if you're like a Zoomer guy, if you're a Zoomer in general, how many people that you know that you grew up with meet these criteria? We have the statistics. I mean, about, thinking back on it, the people I grew up with, about almost half of them were children of divorce. And then another decent chunk of them were only children. Sometimes it was both, which is a real 1-2 punch, being an only child and growing up with a single mother, something like this. Now, I've talked a little bit about it before. I have experience growing up as an only child. I have 2 older sisters. They were born in the 80s. By the time I was in kindergarten, they were out of the house. So I effectively grew up as an only child. Basically, the point of this video is I'm just beginning to notice a very strong correlation between like sort of social and romantic success and your upbringing. I think this is one of the very foundational things, right? That each and every generation after the boomers, the family is just like deteriorating, and we can't place the same expectations on young people to be able to have healthy like patterns of mating when what's the example that's being set? The generation that produced the boomers was the generation that directly preceded them, the greatest generation. That's because the average age of marriage during the baby boom was 20. So if I grew up in the 50s, I'd be married by now. I would probably be having kids. But it's different now. And when people grow up with older parents and everything's different, the way you're socialized is totally a different beast. So I have experience with growing up as kind of an only child. I remember when my sisters were no longer in the house, it just being very empty, very just alone, sort of. And there's that. In these sort of situations, a lot of boomer relationships are much less patriarchal, right? A lot of these, the woman will kind of wear the pants a little bit more. The guy's going, okay, honey. And look, whatever. But when you grow up and you observe this kind of thing, you're kind of learning opposite riz. That's one thing I'll throw out there. Another is that, here's what I've noticed. it's the father's protective instinct to kind of shelter the daughter, and it's the mother's protective instinct to shelter the son. Uh, so in family situations where the woman is less inhibited, is in control, there is going to be a much higher chance of the son, especially if it's an only child, because then only children are the ones, if you're an only child, if you only have one sibling, those are the ones that are going to get helicopters, because it's hard to split your attention amongst 4 or 5 siblings, right? So if you grow up in this sort of situation, where the mother is very much kind of the ruler of the household, there's a good chance that these kind of guys end up being quite sheltered, quite inhibited, quite helicoptered, alongside learning this sort of negative riz, as I talked about. And this is what I see with a lot of people who kind of end up in this space, end up being online a lot, end up going down the the incel black pill ideology rabbit hole. I mean, these are the things I notice, because the crazy thing is I genuinely don't think the average person who gets into this stuff is necessarily even less attractive than any other normal person. I really do see it as a socialization thing. And this means your upbringing is so pivotal. But that's not the worst it could be, right? What I grew up with, I love my parents. You know, sure, it's not perfect. There's a codependent thing going on. They did pretty good. They stayed together. They love each other. It was all right. What about, like, almost half of my friends growing up were children of divorce. And sometimes it's not that bad. Sometimes they still have a strong father figure in their life in the way of a stepfather that came in kind of early, or they still have a lot of contact with their actual father, or they live close or whatever. A lot of other times they just grow up with a single mom. And here's what I noticed with these guys. They will usually take one of 2 paths. The first is that they will overcompensate. I guess if I'm trying to go like Sigmund Freud on your ass, I'd say they're like trying to become their own father in a way, trying to really become the man of the house themselves, and they overcompensate, and they project onto the world, and there's sort of a dark triad thing going on. That's one path, and the other is they very much withdraw into themselves. So they either overcompensate or they withdraw. And one of these paths, from a purely like attraction standpoint, is better, but neither of them are enviable. And what I see with a lot of people who end up getting really black-pilled is they're the type of people who grew up with single mothers who they're not the type to project, right? They're more, it's a mixture of, I guess, their temperament, like just sort of their foundational personality, what path they take, whether they project or withdraw. And I suppose it depends on like how much money their mom got or it was able to make. If their mom's able to focus on them more, I feel like they might be sheltered, right, and then tend to withdraw. But if not, if the mom's working all the time, if she didn't get a lot of that child support, then they'll be sort of out there on the streets, that sort of thing. So this is what I see now. It's either like only children with helicopter parents, or these guys born of divorce, born with single mothers. Growing up with a single mother is very tragic, because this is never the type of like archetype or thing you'd see in media, especially postmodern media. But the father acts as a protector in the household, not just from like external forces, but internally. The father protects the children from the mother's emotional chaos. And this is getting a little base. This is from feel free to push back on this. This is from Sexual Utopia and Power. This type of thing is never in media, but the whole abusive father thing is very much almost a contrivance. I find if you really look into it, it happens a lot. It does happen a lot, but there are just as many cases, if not more, of abusive mothers, and the father is kind of a rock, an emotional sort of steady, something to grab onto in times of chaos. And this is what I've experienced growing up. My mom's a little bit more neurotic, and I love her, but my father has a sort of a calmness about him, an emotional steadiness, a stoicism that when growing up and my mom would worry me or things like this, I'd go to my father and feel a sense of calm. And there's just that masculine presence there grounds you to a logical reality. And growing up with a single mother and not having that there, I'm beginning to realize is just so tragic. And that's not even to mention, like, you're in your room and she has a new boyfriend and you're hearing your mom get banged. I mean, it's just it's so twisted, and it's absurd that boomers, these older generations subjecting their children to this kind of shit, have the gall to they failed their children, and they think they're projecting this positive future. They want that their children, that they failed to fix it all, when really this young guy who's growing up with a single mother and going through all this stuff in today's social climate is really, it's going to take a lot for him to succeed with what he's been given. So what I notice, the types of people who end up, it's just one of the most foundational things for your life success, for your romantic success, for everything. A correlation right up there with your looks, with your genes. I don't know if I'd go that far. Like, genetic determinism is kind of a crazy pill the more you look into it. But people I know with two parents, with a good amount of siblings their age, it's just such a solid, strong foundation to build upon. And if you're an only child and if you're growing up with a single mother, like, your house, it's just, your home life is so empty and tragic and chaotic. And it's very hard to build off that. So that's just something I wanted to talk about. Let's see if there's anything else here. I suppose, I'm trying not to end these videos on a dark note. I'm not saying these things to make anyone feel depressed or whatever. What I've found is the more I kind of learn about this stuff, it's comforting in that it kind of reveals certain things, maps out the problem, tells me it's I'm not alone, tells me that it's larger than just me. And it is tricky because I don't know how I don't know how you turn all these things around. Once these kind of mating patterns are established, they tend to be self-reinforcing. And how do we just turn all these things around? It seems like all the solutions that people come up with aren't really cutting the mustard. What are you just going to mew? You're just going to keep on lifting weights. It's like there's something just broken about these people who come from these family situations. There has to be, you have to look to something more, something higher, if you can in fact choose to believe in it. I don't know. I'm not here to propose solutions. I'm chilling. Everything's fine. Everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. These aren't to make anybody depressed. But hopefully, maybe by hearing stuff like this, you're able to go, oh, I kind of get how things ended up. Maybe with this information, I can now make a change. Whatever. Bless up. God bless. Have a blessed day.